Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday. Today's November 22nd, 2024. And look, guys, when I got up this morning and I started sitting down, I was talking with Mish. We were going over the news. Initially, it looked like it was kind of a slow news day. There wasn't a lot of earnings stories were out. There was no big economic data was released. You know, we had the big NVIDIA point was yesterday. So it's like, okay, it seems like smooth sailing for a couple of days. And then we got looking at some of the cover stories that are out there. And we're noticing there's a trend. We're noticing the central bankers are making news again. And guys, every time the central banks are in the news, the hair on the back of my neck starts to stand up and I start to get a little nervous. And then I realized, oh my God, what is going on in the world right now? Look, guys, the average person is still absolutely being destroyed by the last bout of inflation. All right. And case in point, Redfin is out with a survey just a few minutes ago. Shout out to my buddies at MicroStrategy who posted this one. Redfin comes out, says 1 in 5 people their entire paycheck is going to pay rent. What is it? 1 in 5 people working a second job to make ends meet. 1 in 7 people leaning on family to pay the rent. 1 in 10 people are draining their retirement accounts in order to pay the rent. And that's 1 in 10. That includes people who actually don't have retirement accounts. I wonder how many of those people don't even have retirements to drain. And if they did, they'd probably be draining them too. So the last round of inflation is still killing people. And these idiots are in a hurry. They are dead set on creating the next wave of inflation. And so in honor of these central bank a-holes, these liquidity pumping schmucks, we will be donning the tinfoil hat for the duration of the live stream today. Now, let's talk about these several stories that all point to the return of ZIRP BRRR, the zero interest rate policy and the sound of money printing. The European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, Christine the Felon, the head of the ECB, she's out there saying, oh my goodness, there's all these trade risks are out there. I don't know why I'm using this voice for Christine Lagarde. We better accelerate our rate of monetary easing. We need to make sure financing is available to innovative businesses. In other words, because Donald Trump, I guess, I don't know why, but they are in this big hurry to cut rates in Europe. Guys, low interest rates, that's part of the problem. That's part of what created inflation. Interest rates are the price of money. And, well, when you lower the price of money, money gets cheaper. You end up with more of it, more money creation. So the euro tanked last night. That sent the dollar higher. We also got Canada. Oh, my God, that effeminate little pansy that runs things in our neighbor to the north. He is back in the news. His poll numbers are like lower than freaking Al-Qaeda's. And so what's he doing? He's bringing back helicopter money. I shit you not. All right, it is 2024, and they're doing helicopter money in Canada again. Now, they're doing it small. They're going to be mailing out $250 checks to everybody. What? We are 2 years removed from the peak of inflation, like not even 2 years removed, and they're already printing money and helicoptering it again. Didn't I tell you they'd do this, guys? Haven't I been saying it for years that they will spin the money printers up again? And Mish and I were both just in shock at how quick they're doing it. My God, they are so quick. They were so quick to declare victory over inflation. Oh, don't worry. I mean, it's still like 50% above our arbitrary target, but we're getting there. So we're just going to go ahead and prematurely declare victory so we can hurry up and cause more of it. Free $250 checks for everybody in Canada. Money just falling from the sky. There's your burr, everybody. But wait, there's more. Mr. Schlegel, the head of the Swiss National Bank, he's out there talking this morning, and he's saying that the Swiss National Bank can't rule out negative interest rates. What? Christine's over there like, hurry up and cut rates for innovative businesses and financing. And the Swiss are like, hold my beer, yeah? And oh my God, negative rates? What? And of course, things in Japan are still what they are over there. I mean, they're negative rates. Helicopter money, interest rate cuts. Guys, we still have inflation way above target here. Okay, I get it. It's trended down. But what the hell are they trying to do to people? And on top of that, we've got this story from here in the United States that Donald Trump is considering appointing Kevin Warsh to the head of the Treasury Department in Washington. Well, Kevin Warsh is going to be Treasury Secretary, or at least he is now the front runner being floated. There's several names that are being flown around out there. But here's the thing. this article in the Wall Street Journal this morning. They're talking about making Kevin Warsh Treasury Secretary, but only temporarily until Jerome Powell steps down at the Fed, and then they're going to move him from Treasury over to the Federal Reserve. No, this is not the right approach. No, this blurring line between Treasury and Fed is a huge freaking problem, all right? It was a massive, colossal CF of a mistake to put Janet Yellen, a former Fed official, in as Treasury Secretary, and then Trump seems intent on doing the same thing in reverse, putting a Treasury Secretary in at the Fed. The Treasurer's job is to pay the bills. The Fed's job, I wish they didn't have one, but the Fed's job is to maintain monetary policy, to control the supply of money and the price of that money. And right now, the Fed and the Treasury are acting as one. They are both just figuring out how can we debase the currency in order to enable these imbeciles in Congress to continue spending billions of dollars studying the mating habits of drunk hamsters while people are draining their retirements and sending their entire paycheck to pay the rent. This shit is going on all over the world, guys. It's starting already, and they're all going to act surprised when inflation kicks up again. Now, do you wonder why Bitcoin is pushing $100,000? Do you wonder why gold, despite a recent pullback, is still pushing $2,700? Gold has had a lousy month, and it's still pushing $2,700. Oh, my God. What is going on in Washington? And look, I get it. The thing that Saylor's doing and the infinite money glitch going on over at MicroStrategy, that's contributing to this run in Bitcoin. I understand that. Yes, it's a contributor. And MicroStrategy is probably the next FTX in the making. And when it pops, it is going to drag down Bitcoin. But that's not the only thing that is driving that, guys. People can see what is coming, and they are fleeing to gold. They are fleeing to Bitcoin. They're fleeing to silver. They're getting the hell out of the way of this inflationary train that's coming. And look, McDonald's can see it coming too. You know, speaking of that Redfin story about people trying to pay their rent, McDonald's is doubling down on their $5 value meal because they realize, oh my God, eating lunch at McDonald's is now apparently a luxury for half the country. And so McDonald's is having to jump through all these hoops to try to lure people back in because they can't afford a freaking lunch at McDonald's. Well, they can't because they sent their whole paycheck to pay for the rent. So McDonald's is expanding their $5 menu, adding all kinds of promotions, doing what they can to try to bring inflation-starved customers back into the restaurant. Other news going on this morning, Gary Gensler, he's out of here. Bye-bye. Fare thee well, dear Felicia. Gary Gensler announced he will be stepping down on January 20th. GTFO Gary. Just reminder here, Gary Gensler, look, I've never really been a big fan of anybody that ran the SEC. It's a toothless organization. They do a horrible job. But let's stop and admire just a second just how awful Gary Gensler was at his job. What did Gary Gensler do at the SEC? Let's see. He did nothing when Robinhood conspired with Citadel and TD Ameritrade and all the other brokerages to take away the buy button for GameStop. Gary Gensler did nothing about that arguably the single biggest instance of securities fraud in the history of Wall Street. And Gary Gensler didn't do a damn thing about it. Okay. He sat by through that. He went after crypto. Okay, great. Yeah, there are crooks in crypto, but why don't you fix the crooks where it's your job to police them before you invent a whole new market for yourself to do nothing in? And of course, he did nothing while the AI bubble was inflated, the largest speculative asset bubble in history. It continues to inflate to this day. It is obvious accounting fraud, round tripping, channel stuffing, outright manipulation, super micro, everything going on over there. Gary Gensler has not done a damn thing while an $18 trillion stock bubble has inflated on his watch. I will not shed any tears for the departure of Mr. Gensler. Go ahead, Gary. Go collect speaking fees from all the organizations that you didn't prosecute during your time at the SEC. Enjoy your retirement. And there's a rumor that Elon Musk and the Dozers over there at the Department of Government Efficiency are thinking about putting out a free app for people to file their taxes, a free app from the government to file taxes. I'm sure that's going to work great. It's going to be like the best thing since the Obamacare website. But besides that, that sent stock in H&R Block and Intuit reeling yesterday. I don't know. I'm optimistic. I like the idea of a free app where instead of all the damn paperwork and paying all the stupid filing fees, you can answer a couple of questions on your phone and file your taxes in 30 minutes instead of ruining a whole freaking day. But then again, it's a government department and it's probably going to be shit if they actually do get this thing done. So pardon me for being skeptical. And with that, why don't we shrink my big melon of a head and let's see what's going on in markets today, shall we? Don't forget that like button for the algorithm and that subscribe button so you can have your coffee with the melon heads every day as we go through markets. And right now we have got the S&P 500 is modestly negative here, down just 2 points, 0.04% lower for the S&P this morning. The Dow is actually positive here, up 36 points or 0.08%, still barely moving for the Dow. And the NASDAQ is also negative here, 26 points lower, 0.13% to the downside. So we got 2 out of the 3 indexes are in the red this morning, hence the bear thumbnail. Now, look at the Dixie here this morning. This is pretty interesting. The dollar sharply higher again. We got a 107 handle on the DXY, all right? The dollar has been surging lately. We're now up another 41 basis points. Now, we're off our highs of the morning. Obviously, you're seeing, look at this. This is Christine Lagarde giving the middle finger to all the people in Europe last night while we were sleeping. That was when Christine Lagarde came out and said, oh, we need to hurry up and cut rates, make financing available for innovative technologies to enhance productivity. In other words, the return of zero interest rate policy in Europe. They're going to cut rates more aggressively. That sent the euro plummeting. And of course, when the euro plummets, the euro is the biggest component of the DXY. And so the DXY goes higher as the euro plummets. This is the European Central Bank weakening their currency, making the dollar appear relatively stronger. Also, looking over at the bond market, we got looks like the long end of the curve is a little lower. The short end is a little bit higher here, but no big moves either way. The 30-year Treasury is at 4.591. That's down 3 basis points. The 10-year Treasury, 4.412. That's down 2.5 points. The 2 years at 4.341, down almost 1 point. But the 1 month is a little bit higher here at 4.612. That's up about 2 basis points this morning. Looking over at commodities, gold is having a good morning here. We're at 2,689 for spot gold. We were above 2,700 earlier this morning, despite that stronger dollar. So gold rallying in the face of a stronger dollar. That goes to show you investors are looking for some safe havens right now here. 0.75% higher for gold. Spot silver getting in on the action, 31.05 here. That's up another 26 cents or 0.89% for silver. I like the shiny. Meanwhile, copper's down 0.8%. Platinum is pretty much unchanged here. Palladium is down 2.25%, but still over $1,000 for palladium futures. Crude oil is modestly lower here by a couple of pennies, $70.08 for January WTI futures. Now, let's talk about Bitcoin here, guys. Right now, Bitcoin is off its highs, still above $98,000 here. Now, at one point last night, we went as high as $99,543 last night. All right, we were within 0.5% of 100K on Bitcoin. This thing continues to rally like gangbusters. It's having a little bit of a pullback right now. I would expect it's going to stall out here. This is a very big psychological level, 100,000. We saw it at 95,000. There was a little bit of a sell wall there. And when I say a little bit, it lasted for a couple of hours. But I suspect we're going to take a couple of days to break through 100. I'd love to be wrong about that, but something tells me we're going to fail here for a couple of days in a row. Now, we do have this one in Bloomberg this morning. MicroStrategy's infinite money glitch won't last. Now, I'm not going to read this article because it says exactly what I've been saying about MicroStrategy for the last couple of days and how MicroStrategy has effectively done the same thing the AI mania did. They discovered the infinite money glitch. They borrow money or they issue shares to get more money. They buy Bitcoin. The Bitcoin goes up. It drives their share price higher, allowing them to issue more shares or borrow even more money. Rinse, repeat, infinite money glitch. It works until it doesn't. All right. MicroStrategy is currently trading at a ridiculous premium to the value of its Bitcoin holdings. It's not going to last. Sooner or later, this FOMO in MicroStrategy is going to collapse. I don't know if the company is going to collapse. MicroStrategy almost got liquidated during the last Bitcoin winter. They were within a few $1,000s of that margin call where they would have had to sell their Bitcoin holdings in order to meet that margin call. That would have crashed the price. All right. So They dodged that bullet during the last crypto winter. Michael Saylor is a natural boundary pusher. He's one of those guys who just has to live on the edge of that razor. He doesn't know how to be careful, so he's going to push that until he fails. One day it's going to happen. It's probably not today. It's probably not tomorrow. It's probably not even going to be in 2024. Maybe that happens in 2025. But at the very least, the mainstream has now caught on to what MicroStrategy is doing. It's obviously the infinite money glitch, and those just never end well. I just don't know why they have been pretending this same thing hasn't been going on in the AI bubble for the better part of 2 years now. All right, but the main story at hand here, let's talk about the big one today, because this is a big story. The European Central Bank's Lagarde sees Europe under a growing trade threat. Oh my God, Donald Trump got elected. Quick, cut interest rates and cause inflation for a whole freaking continent, according to Christine the Felon. The European Union faces growing threats to its trade with other parts of the world and must respond by deepening its capital markets to finance innovation and increase productivity, European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde said Friday. Well, wow, that sounds so wonderful, doesn't it? Oh, deepening capital markets. Yeah, so when we dive in, we don't hit our head in the shallow end. Okay, deepening capital markets to finance innovation. I love innovation. Oh, the focus group just loves this story so far. Increased productivity. Who could be opposed to that? Great. But what is she actually saying here? More easy money. Oh, I wonder if you ask the same people, hey, do you want your money to get less valuable so that your cost of living goes up, but your wages don't? Would you like to repeat that exercise? I wonder if the same poll might react less favorably if we don't slap all that lipstick on this pig and make it seem like this unicorns and rainbows, trust tree in the nest kind of talking point. Why don't we tell people what we're really talking about doing and see if they are so in favor of it? Now, they go on to say U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has said he wants to raise tariffs on imports. Okay, this is Bloomberg. They got their Trump goggles on. Every story is an, oh, my God, orange man, bad angle. I get it. The geopolitical environment has become less favorable with growing threats to free trade from all corners of the world. As the most open of the major economies, the EU is more exposed to these trends than others. That's kind of interesting. As the most open of all those economies, weren't we just talking about the massive tariffs that the European Union is putting on Chinese electric vehicles right now? I'm not sure that economy is quite so open, Christine, but I digress. With that source of growth in peril, Lagarde said Europe needs to act urgently to increase the financing available to innovative new businesses that could help drive economic expansion, with many forced to rely on funding from the U.S. and elsewhere. And guys, when they say we need to act urgently to increase the financing available to innovative new businesses, they're talking about they need to further inflate tech bubbles with lower interest rates. They are going to ZIRP again in Europe. That is what they're talking about, lowering rates. And look at what the euro does when she said that. This is the USD to the euro chart. This is the number of euros it takes to make $1. So when you see this chart moving up, that is the euro weakening. When you see it moving down, that's the euro strengthening. All right, now we're looking at 5-minute candles. So this is what happened while we were sleeping. This is in Eastern time. It was right around 4 a.m. Eastern time. The euro just takes a dive. Now, it obviously went a little too far, hence this big red candle here, and it came back down to earth a little bit. But this is what drove that wacky chart in the Dixie. This is why the dollar looks stronger this morning, because the Europeans just debased the hell out of their currency last night with their silly talking points. And by the way, Europe, they're like, oh, the ECB, Christine Lagarde said something dovish. Here comes the Swiss National Bank. This guy Schlegel, the head of the Swiss National Bank, he says, we cannot rule out negative interest rates. This was just a couple of hours ago. Oh my God, negative interest rates in Switzerland. Okay. All right, who had that one on their 2020s bingo card? How about the second half of their 2020s bingo card? Who had negative interest rates after we've seen the worst inflation since the 1970s? They just said this today. I told you guys they would bring back the money printers. I told you, and I told you why. They would bring it back because we begged them. We haven't even started begging them yet, and they're already talking about doing it. Meanwhile, this little fairy to the north, oh my God, it looks like he decided to uncross his legs and actually get something done. Oh, we wish you hadn't, Justin. Trudeau government to send $250 checks to most people and slash the goods and services tax on some goods. You said that. You read that right, guys. $250 checks. Helicopter money is back already. It's only 2024, and the helicopter money is already back in Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who is trending lower than smallpox right now, or at least he's polling less than smallpox, announced on Thursday a suite of new measures meant to alleviate some of the affordability pressures people have been experiencing in the post-COVID era, including a 2-month GST holiday on some goods and services. The Liberal government will also send $250 checks to 18.7 million people in Canada who worked in 2023 and earned $150,000 or less. Those checks, which the government is calling the Working Canadians Rebate, because money printing leading to the next round of inflation didn't test so well, that will arrive sometime in the early spring of 2025. Oh, yes, because people are suffering from the inflation, and the only way to alleviate the suffering of inflation is to print money and give it to people. And then, oh, but isn't that what caused inflation the last time? Hey, that's just a minor detail. Good luck with your vote buying, Justin. I know you got an election coming up next year, and your odds of getting elected are actually better than Kamala's odds of having a coherent thought or actually making a good talking point. But, hey, helicopter money, we've all done. We did it here in the States. They're doing it again in Canada. All right, so we talked about Switzerland. We talked about Canada. We talked about the European Central Bank. Guys, I know we got a lot of Trump fans on this channel. And look, I voted for the guy too, but I've been saying it. Trump is an easy money guy also. Yes, he is. His first term, he was all about those low interest rates. And here we go. He is repeating the same mistake that Biden made when he put Yellen in at the Treasury. Trump considers Warsh serving as Treasury Secretary and then Fed chair. They are slowly merging the Fed and the Treasury into the same department just with the leadership announcements that they're making. This is a horrible idea. The president-elect floated the idea at a Wednesday meeting with the former Fed governor. President-elect Donald Trump has floated selecting financier Kevin Warsh as his Treasury Secretary with the understanding that he could later be nominated to lead the Federal Reserve when Jerome Powell's term as chair ends in 2026, according to people familiar with the matter. Trump discussed the potential arrangement with Warsh during a meeting Wednesday at Mar-a-Lago, the president-elect's private club in Florida, some of the people said. Now, maybe that's why all those ambulances were at Mar-a-Lago yesterday. There was this scare that, oh, my God, did somebody try to kill Trump again or something? Because there was all these ambulances at Mar-a-Lago. I think it's probably because maybe there was a couple of Austrian economists in the room when they talked about this idea, and they all had heart attacks and died when he floated the idea of making the Treasury Secretary the head of the Federal Reserve. And that's why the ambulances were at Mar-a-Lago yesterday, because this is a terrible idea. Warsh is a front runner to lead the Treasury Department, but as of Thursday, Trump hadn't decided whom he would choose for the pivotal cabinet position. The people familiar with the matter said Trump was still weighing how he would approach the Fed vacancy and likely wouldn't make a final decision until closer to when Powell's term as chair ends in May 2026. Trump is thinking about appointing investor Scott Bessent to lead the National Economic Council with an eye toward nominating him as Treasury Secretary later in his term if Warsh becomes Fed chair, some of the people said. And by the way, that guy, Scott Bessent, he scares the heck out of me. He is a former George Soros guy. He was the architect of Soros's attack on the pound. He also made a big short bet against the yen in the 1990s. He ran big fundraisers for Al Gore. He was a Democrat right up until 2015 when he decided all of a sudden he's going to be a Republican. And now he's the front runner to be a freaking head of the National Economic Council and maybe even Treasury Secretary. Look, all these guys have one thing in common: easy money, lower interest rates, dollar debasement to fund the government's reckless spending. He's going to make the problem worse. The Fed, the independence of the Fed. Look, we shouldn't even have a Fed at all. But if we're going to have one, they can't have a direct line to the freaking Treasury, because then they end up working in unison. And the only people who suffer in that case is us. The people who currently hold dollars end up paying the price. The Fed prints more money to enable the government to borrow it, to enable Congress never doing what they need to do, which is cut spending. Anyways, now, while that's going on, average people continue to struggle with the problems created by the last few people that did all this stuff we were just talking about. This one from Redfin this morning. Shout out to my friends at MicroEdge. By the way, guys, today after my afternoon live stream, a little after 4 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to be going on MicroEdge's Twitter Spaces to talk with them. I think we're going to be probably talking about the AI bubble. So shout out to my buddies on MacroEdge. Look for that one later this afternoon. But right now, more than 1 in 5 renters say their entire paycheck goes to rent. It's the best economy ever. Remember, they told you how good the economy was and how you guys have never had it better. What's your problem? Why can't you recognize it? Well, maybe it's because your whole freaking paycheck is going to pay for your rent. Just over 1 in 5, 22% of U.S. renters say all of their regular income goes directly to paying their rent, according to a new survey from Redfin, the technology-powered real estate brokerage. Working a second job is also a fairly common way for renters to pay housing costs, with 20% of renters citing that method. Nearly the same share, 19%, say they have worked a job they hated to afford rent. 1 in 7, 14% of renters have used as cash gift from family to pay rent. Renters also report dipping into money that was earmarked for retirement to pay their housing costs. More than 1 in 10, 13% of people who rent have pulled money out of their retirement funds early, and 12% have contributed less to retirement savings. While U.S. rents have flattened out over the last year, rents are much higher than they were before the pandemic because rental prices have surged faster than wages. Thank you, Federal Reserve. It's more difficult than it used to be for Americans to afford rents, particularly lower income Americans. Rental affordability may improve in the near future, with prices already showing signs of losing steam as more newly constructed apartments come on the market. Guys, we're sitting here, stocks all-time highs, assets all-time highs. They're lowering rates, they're printing money, and look what they've already done to people. 20% of renters pay everything they've got just for rent. What the heck are they eating? Besides nothing, I guess. I guess we solved the problem of the obesity epidemic. Just make it so nobody can afford food. Case in point, this story. McDonald's is stepping up its value offer with the new McValue platform coming to a restaurant near you in January. All right, the $5 value meal is expanding. McDonald's said Friday it will launch a new value platform called McValue in 2025 that will include its current popular $5 value meal as its customers continue to feel the pinch of higher costs of living. The fast food giant had already said it would extend the $5 value meal that it launched in June through December as consumers seek budget-friendly meal options. On Friday, the company said the $5 meal deal will be extended through next summer and become part of the McValue platform. The meal allows customers to purchase the following items for $5: 4 chicken McNuggets, a small order of fries, a small soft drink, and the choice of either a McDouble or a McChicken sandwich. And I remember, I had one of those when I was your age moments. This is how I know I'm getting old. But guys, when I was in college, which wasn't that long ago, talking about 20 years ago, a 5-piece chicken McNugget was on the dollar menu at Wendy's. All right. So now they're saying $5 for a 4-piece McNugget. It used to be $1 for a 5-piece at Wendy's. And you better believe I would go there and order 20 of those things. Yes, I could put down 100 Wendy's chicken nuggets in one sitting when I was in college. Hey, this is a sign of both Jack is getting old, because that was now 20 years ago, but also look how much the currency has been debased in that time. Look at what they have done to people. And so this is the average person scrambling to make ends meet. They're drawing down their 401k to pay the rent. McDonald's is jumping through hoops to make their food more affordable, and they're trying to make it worse. And, well, this guy is going away, too. There he is. There's Gary Gensler, that snooty MFer. He's out of here. Gary Gensler to step down as SEC chair in a move that has crypto bulls glad. Look, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we're already getting late in the show, guys. I like Bitcoin. I'm not really a crypto guy. I like Bitcoin. I avoid the shit coins. But the reasons I don't like Gary Gensler has nothing to do with crypto. The reason I don't like Gary Gensler is because he's a useless boob who has sat there and done nothing his whole time in the SEC. What happened with the meme stocks when they took away the buy button was one of the biggest crimes Wall Street has ever perpetuated against the average people in this country. They did it in broad daylight while everybody was watching, and this guy did nothing. He didn't do a damn thing about it. Do not celebrate him. Do not applaud him and thank him for his efforts and his service when he leaves. This guy should go down in history as a worthless POS. End of rant. Bye, Gary. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. And I just want to say thank you very much to Mr. Chuck G. He says, yo, homie, yo. Yeah. Yo, Chuck. How you doing? Good to see you, brother. Thank you for being a Melonhead member and for supporting the channel, Charles. I appreciate that very much. Charles is back again. He says, wasn't there a story about SMCI borrowing stuff from NVIDIA, which was propping up NVIDIA's profits? So if SMCI cooked their books, would that mean false profits for NVIDIA? I'm not aware of a specific story about SMCI buying extra stuff from NVIDIA. That I'm not aware of. I do know SMCI is NVIDIA's third largest customer. All right. So NVIDIA's third largest customer is a gigantic freaking fraud, and the company's probably going away. That's definitely going to affect NVIDIA's earnings at some point. Now, the big question I have with SMCI, first of all, the issue with the server cooling, the servers overheating and redesigning, what's that going to do to SMCI and Dell? I'm curious what's really going on there, and is that going to affect Blackwell's sales for NVIDIA? But the other thing is that big growth in accounts receivable. NVIDIA has $17 billion of accounts receivable right now that they're basically recording it as revenue, and that's money that has not been paid to them by their customers yet. All right. How much of that is SMCI, and how much of that is SMCI not going to be able to pay because the company's run by crooks? That's kind of an important detail. That's worth keeping an eye on. So I haven't seen any stories to that effect. As far as I know, there's only like myself and a couple of guys like Kakashi and Just Dario are asking questions, and the Coastal Journal is another one asking questions about that on X right now. The mainstream press is not asking questions about that. They should, though. If they were doing their jobs, they would stop with the orange man bad in every article and actually ask questions. But hey, I'm hopeful. Call me a hopeless romantic, Chuck. I'm hopeful one day they might do that. Today is not that day. Thank you, sir, for supporting the channel. I appreciate that very much. Gomers44 says, thank you, Jack and Mid. I think he meant to say Mish there. By the way, guys, Mish is M-Y-S-H, not Mitch. I get a lot of Mitches. He's from Michigan, not Michigan. But I digress. How do drunken hamsters align with drunken sailors? Maybe Mish can chime in. Look, I'm sure if you put drunken sailors and drunken hamsters in a room together, hijinks would ensue. But this is a family show, Gomers. I'm not going there. Sorry. But that being said, I jest. Perhaps in my haste, I have not taken the time to appreciate the benefits of our tax dollars going to fund the study of the mating habits of drunken hamsters. Maybe these hamsters get a little booze in them and they turn into hopeless romantics, and maybe the hamster ladies love it. And maybe they're all like little happy hamsters and they all, live happily ever after on their hamster wheels thanks to the booze. Maybe there are unforeseen benefits there. But me, in my negativity, I can only sit here and dwell on the fact that the inflation that is being caused by the enabling of this spending on this stupid shit is killing people's lives. So maybe there are benefits there, but I just think the benefits aren't worth the cost. Call me a pessimist. Thank you so much, Gomers. I'm sure it would be a great show if the sailors and the hamsters got together with the booze, but we're not going to talk about that anymore. Big Bush Ape, what's going on, brother? He says, I hope Russia don't sink our island. Blinken and co. batshit crazy, along with the fools in our government in the UK. Please fix President Trump. Sorry for the rant. Look, I don't know what Trump's unique form of carry a big stick geopolitics. He tends to be a little rash, right? Remember the Rocket Man stuff with North Korea when Trump first took office and everybody was like, oh my God, he said fire and fury. He's freaking crazy. And then a month later, Trump and Kim Jong-un were shaking hands on North Korean soil. So I don't know how Vladimir Putin is going to respond to that style of diplomacy. All I can tell you is the style of diplomacy of having a cross-dressing underwear thief negotiate with dictators probably isn't going to work so well. And so maybe we'll try it a different way. Look, I don't know if he's going to do a better job. It's hard to imagine doing a worse job. That being said, it's not too late to stop this shit, guys. Right now, it's still just an isolated conflict. It doesn't have to turn into a pan-global military shootout, although it looks like we're still heading that way. It's about all I got to say about that. And thanks again, Big Bush Ape. And Eduardo Garcia says, I like when you keep the tinfoil hat on, Rockstar. Look, guys, the tinfoil hat used to be, just reserved for the nutcases and, the wackos. And now the nutcases and the wackos have been so right for so long about so much that the tinfoil hat has become fashionable. And so, hey, guys, I'm telling you, holiday season's coming up. This thing is a chick magnet. Trust me. You will be fighting them off with a stick if you put this thing on and go out to the bar with the tinfoil hat. I'm telling you guys. I mean, this right here, this hat will singularly be responsible for solving the collapse of the birth rate in the Western Hemisphere. There's proof because those drunken hamsters that the government has been studying, we gave them tinfoil hats. And man, the hamster ladies were just all over them. And I'm going to put this little anecdote aside because this show is going downhill fast. Thank you, Eduardo Garcia. Appreciate the super chat, sir. Lircy, he says, M2 for the last year is way up. Inflation, ? It's funny you should mention that, Lircy. You're right. The money supply has been growing. I thought the Federal Reserve was shrinking the money supply with their quantitative tightening. Why is the money supply growing? Maybe that's why inflation won't come down. Maybe that's why home prices won't come down. Maybe that's because they're not shrinking the money supply. Maybe it's because they're lying to us and the money supply is still secretly, well, not secretly, growing. That's a good point. More money in circulation, higher prices. These two things are not unrelated. Thank you very much, Lircy. I appreciate the super chat. Hey, Pasta Man is back as well. He says people buying groceries with credit cards. Yeah, I mean, especially those people who are paying their entire paycheck on their rent. They're using credit cards. They're also using buy now, pay later. And then that debt, of course, is being securitized and sold to people's retirement funds that those same people are tapping into early in order to make their rental payments. And I'm sure, I don't know what this all means in aggregate, but I'm sure it's really good for the average person. Yep, people putting the groceries on the credit card. America's credit card bill remains over $1 trillion and rising. Look, guys, this is not the best economy ever. Sooner or later, these trends will become a problem. And whoever this next Treasury Secretary is going to have to unscrew this mess, especially the problem with the over-reliance on T-bill issuance versus longer duration Treasury bonds. It's not going to be pretty the next few years. And again, I was saying this before Election Day, no matter who wins, everybody loses because the guy who's in power, when it happens, gets the blame. Right now, that looks like the Donald will be getting the blame for that. Whether he deserves it or not, he does deserve some of it because he did oversee a lot of money printing in his first term. And Uncle Fedster, thanks again, Pasta Man. Uncle Fedster, thank you, sir. Says, happy Friday, Jack. Here's to hoping they don't start World War III over the weekend. Yeah, we like to have our world wars on the weekends because people are less likely to notice the news because they're out having a good time with their family when the missiles start crisscrossing in the sky on their way to leveling our cities. So if World War III does start, it'll probably be a Friday afternoon. I'm just saying bank failures, everything else, that's when that happens, right? The Israel-Iran thing, that usually happens over the weekend when people aren't paying attention. The stupid scripted war we've been fighting for the press. And yeah, I share your sentiments, Uncle Fedster. Let's not have World War III. Let's have a World War III free weekend. Is that too much to ask? Let's start with a low bar and work our way up from there. Thank you, Uncle Fedster, for supporting the channel. Thank you guys for all the super chats this morning. I really appreciate that. And for the laughs. Thank you guys for having your coffee with the Melon Heads here. Hope you guys have an awesome afternoon. I'll be back at 3:15 p.m. Eastern time for my weekly wrap-up live stream, and then I'm going on the Macro Edge show after that. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for everything you guys do for the channel. Links down below should you feel so inclined. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Love you guys. Till next time. Live small. Dream big.